Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. We are speaking with Dale Holder, and we are remembering Eddie Van Halen. And Dale has a very interesting and very special, unique story about Eddie. And so, Dale, first of all, as we say in Montreal, bonjour. Welcome to the Rock Talk.
Well, thank you for having me, Mitch. My pleasure.
I'm very interested in this story because we've talked about it over Twitter and over other messaging services, and it was featured in different magazines, online places. Talk to me about how Eddie Van Halen reached out and impacted your life.
Yeah, so I became a Van Halen fan, in high school. Like most of us guys in our 50s and 60s. I'm 56 years old, graduated high school in 82, got turned on to Van Halen. My brother was a drummer. I grew up with music around me all the time, and he used to pick on me because, I wasn't listening to good music, as he would say it. Then one day I came home and I had Van Halen 1. He was like, hey, look at you, you finally got some chops on your musical taste. So,
got rid of the Casey and the Sunshine Band album?
I think I was doing some Casey and the Sunshine Band. So I started getting into it, and I was like, this was pretty earth-shattering the first time I heard it. A fun little anecdote, back in high school, I think it was 81 during Diver Down tour. I had a girlfriend in high school. We were on again, off again, and we had bought tickets to go to the Diver Down show. And we were broken up during the period of time when the concert came to town. And the girl that I was seeing came over to my house. And I don't know if you remember Frank Shorter, the runner, back in the 80s. They had those, guys had those little running shorts that were real short. And I had a pair of Dolphin running shorts, red and white striped shorts. And I know I sound like I'm going off the rails here, but this is going to make sense. And she saw these in my bedroom. She was like, oh, these are awesome. And she was going to the show, and she was going with a different group of people. And I was going with my old girlfriend, who I'd already bought tickets with, because back then you bought your tickets well in advance and actually waited outside the Coliseum to get in line and camped out and stuff. So I was like, sure, wear this, if you want to. And me and my ex-girlfriend, who were, we were on again, off again, like I said, we were up in this higher tier. And during the concert, Dave always does his thing, and he pulls this girl up on stage, and she's just smoking hot, and she's got on these red and white striped shorts, and I'm like, oh my God, that's Noah. So he pulled up the girl that I was actually dating at the time, to do the Dave kiss. Needless to say, that ruined it, and I never saw her again.
Did you get the shorts back? Did you go get the shorts?
I think I got the shorts back. I asked her if she washed them. She never told me exactly what went on after backstage, so left that to my imagination. But anyway, so just fun stuff. Love Van Halen. And then around 1983, and shortly after high school, I was hanging out with a friend, and he had this guy over that was a new worker with him, and the guy had moved down from Michigan, didn't know anybody. His uncle owned a business down here, and he wanted to move to Greensboro, and his name was Mike. And we started talking. He was like, what kind of music do you listen to? And I was like, well, primarily just Van Halen. And he was like, dude, that's all I listen to. And we hit it off. That was our mutual interest. We ended up becoming roommates. We were roommates for 5 years. We always went and saw Van Halen. And shortly after, of course, we became roommates. Van Halen split up, and Sammy Hagar became their lead singer. And he and I would argue about, I was a Roth guy, he was a Hagar guy. And sometimes our arguments were pretty intense too. We'd go to the show, and during the late 80s and 90s, it was always with Sammy, because of course Dave didn't get back with the band until 2007. But we were roommates, and when I got married, he was my best man in my wedding. When he got married, I was in his wedding, etc. And I don't know how many times we saw Van Halen together, but if they were in Greensboro, and Van Halen, for whatever reason, loves Greensboro.
I know there's a lot of shows and a lot of bootlegs from Greensboro.
Yeah, so they
by the way,
always
when you
either-
got married, did you play "When It's Love" at the wedding?
No, my wife wouldn't let me do that. So,
Wow.
so we may have done it at the party afterwards. Anyway, yeah, so Greensboro is always like one of the places where they open or they end. And sometimes they go to Charlotte, sometimes they go to Raleigh, especially with Hagar later in the 90s. It seems like they went for the big open amphitheaters, that seemed to be the thing, Walnut Creek Amphitheater in Charlotte or Raleigh. So we would drive and spend the night and make a big weekend of it, that type of stuff. And in 2007, of course, when Dave got back in the band, we went and saw him in Greensboro, and that was a phenomenal show, by the way. So if you ever want to watch a fantastic bootleg, look up Baltimore 2008. Oh my gosh, that thing just killed.
That pops, yeah. Listen, they were great on the reunion tour, and when they first announced it and they said Wolfgang's going to be in, we went, and then I actually went to a show and I went, it's got chops.
Yeah, he did. And of course, all of us old schoolers still kind of wish that Michael Anthony was in it, because it was like you had Roth back, but now you don't have Michael Anthony backing up Roth, so, and of course, Roth's voice was not quite what it was in the 70s, and I don't know how he did those squeals and cat calls and what he did, but hard to do that, in 60. But 07 was a great show, and then we went again in 2012. He was my go-to guy. I knew he would go. He knew I'd go, that type of thing. And we were at the show. Took one of our best pictures ever. I think it was somebody sitting next to us, and he had a beer in his hand, and we're cheers and and stuff like that. I was like, wow, that was a really good picture. Well, shortly after 2012, he started having stomach issues and things, and he went to the hospital or went to the doctor, and they diagnosed him with colon cancer. And so he fought it, and he was a warrior, and it looked like he had beaten it for a long time. It was in remission, and it really wasn't something. We knew he had it, and it was hanging around, that type of thing. And he would go in every once in a while, but in 2015, late 2014, early 2015, it came back really hard, and harder than the first time. And he was in and out of the hospital. He would be like in the hospital for 5 days at a time, and then he'd get to go home, and then he'd be home for 2 days, and he'd have to go back to the hospital again. So it was brutal. Sometimes I'd go up to the hospital and spend the night with him. Did it once, and he didn't even know I was there. He called me the next day. He says, "Did you come into my room last night? I found a gum wrapper." And I was like, "Yeah, I did, but you were out." So. But that was the type of relationship we had, and so the 2015 tour was announced, and they were going to be in Raleigh. So we agreed. We bought tickets, and I think tickets went on sale in March or April, something like that. But as we got closer to the spring, it was getting clearer and clearer that the chances of him going to a big crowded venue. Because when you've got cancer and you're taking all the medications he's taken, his immune system was weakened. And a lot of times he had an IV attached to him, and he was, on a roller, like you see people going down the hallway. So,
listen, I've been in and out of the hospital myself for my heart. So I know that walking around with that pole,
Right. So we were kind of hoping that it would be something for him to fight for, something for him to look forward to. And, I told one of his friends one night, I said, I want to do something for Mike, like a bucket list. Mike played the guitar. He wasn't great, but he could move around, and he taught me a few chords. I could bang on the drums a little bit. I wasn't great. My brother got mad whenever I got in there and hit us. It's like that movie with Will Ferrell. You've been playing on my drums. No, I haven't been touched. I didn't touch your drums. But we'd go over to my mom's house, because my brother lived at my mom's, and he had his drums in my old bedroom, and Mike would get his guitar, and we would jam together and stuff like that. So he really idolized and looked up to Eddie, and Eddie, of course, was the king. So even as much as we thought about Roth or Hagar, the one constant was Eddie, what he did, and it just broke ground, and everybody who played a guitar wanted to play like Eddie, and many people who started playing a guitar stopped because they realized they weren't going to be Eddie.
That was me.
Yeah,
I tried, and then I went, why am I not playing Eruption after a week? And then
I can't get this. I can't figure this out. I can do this little tapping thing. So he taught me how to tap on, lift off, tap on, lift off, So I can do and that was about it. Couldn't play a chord. But I told one of my buddies, I said, I'm going to see if I can't do something nice for Mike, because it was clear it was going to be terminal, and we didn't know how long we had. And I was like, well, so I'm going to try to see if I can do a meet and greet with Eddie, because I had seen Michael Anthony do something on Google Hangouts, and I can't remember what the format was, but he had callers call in and ask him questions and stuff, and it was really neat. And I thought, gosh, this would be a great way. You don't have to fly him out to Los Angeles or Pasadena to do it face to face, and maybe we could just get him to Skype or something. So. Great idea. Turned out to be a lot harder than I thought, because I'm not in the music industry, and reaching people in the music industry, especially somebody as private as Eddie, is not very easy. So I had a couple of people that I followed on social media that I reached out to that responded back to me. One was David Bearwald. I don't know if you remember David Bearwald from David and David. They sang "Welcome to the Boomtown," that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't have any contacts. I had read Greg Renoff's book, Van Halen Rising, and I reached out to him. We actually became friends.
Greg's a great guy.
Yeah, so Mark Goodman had me on his show Tuesday night for a little bit, and while I was talking to him, he's like, Greg Renoff's going to follow coming up, and I was like, that's awesome. So I called Greg afterwards. I was like, dude, I was your opening act. But what a great guy. But so I called Greg, and he was like, dude, I wrote a book and couldn't get the guy to call me. So I'd stay up late because I'm East Coast. I know they're West Coast. I'm thinking, that might increase my odds if I call, later in the afternoon or whatever. And then it hit me that Janie, his wife, was his publicist. So instead of searching for Van Halen stuff, I started searching her website and her, people that she represented. And lo and behold, I got her phone number. Turned out to be her cell phone number. And I called it, and she answered. As soon as she answered, I could tell she immediately regretted it, because she was like, I don't normally answer this number this late at night for numbers I don't recognize. And I was like, well, wait, don't hang up. Let me tell you why I'm calling. She's probably thinking stalker fan guy, So I had about 2 seconds to keep her from hanging up on me. And I told her the story real quick, and she paused for a second, and I got a awe out of her. And I knew I had a chance at that point. So she said, I tell you what, let me talk to Eddie. They were getting ready to do the Ellen DeGeneres show and the Kimmel show. They were getting ready to do those two shows like back to back, same weekend or the same week. And she said, he's really busy getting this stuff done. I'll talk to him and we'll see if we can work something out. So a week or so later, we got back together again. She said, Eddie's more than glad to do it, and we'll do something, on FaceTime. And, do you have an iPad? And I was like, I don't have an iPad, but I think his wife does. So at this point, his wife didn't even know what I was trying to pull off, because I didn't want to tell a lot of people and then not be able to do it.
Right. You don't want to build up their belief and then disappoint them.
Right. So nobody other than the one guy, Jay, that I told. And so I told Nancy, I said, listen, I need to get your iPad because I got to get your user ID off of it or whatever. So Nancy so Janie can call and make the connection. And so I did. And so we set a date, and it was in May. And we had a time, I think it was 2:00 on a Saturday. And so I had to tell Nancy what the plan was. So now Nancy was in on it, and we didn't tell Mike. And I went over to Mike's house probably around 1:30 to kind of set everything up. And my plan was to borrow her iPad and sit on the couch next to him and say, hey, I'm thinking about getting an iPad. How do you use it? And well, I already had an iPad Pro, so I was quite confident with it, but, just flipping through the apps and stuff like that. Well, the first thing that hit me was Mike was having a bad day when I came in. He was very medicated and he was very groggy. So I kind of had to shake him to life and wake him up, and he was like, "Why are you so hyper?" And I was like, "Well, if you don't know, you're getting ready to meet Eddie Van Halen," but I couldn't tell him that, so I sat on the couch with him, kind of shoulder to shoulder, letting him pretend that he was telling me how to use the app. And then the phone rings on the iPad. And I said, "Your phone's ringing on your iPad's ringing." He goes, "Well, answer it." So I hit the little green button and up pops Janie's face on the iPad, and he doesn't know who Janie is. And I said, "Who is it?" She goes, "It's Janie. I've got somebody that wants to talk to Mike." And I said, "Well, who could that be?" And then next thing you know, you see Eddie's face. So I hand the iPad to Mike. He thinks it's a friend dressed up like Eddie Van Halen. He thinks it's some type of, stunt we're doing to lift his spirits. And he goes, "Who is this?" And then he goes, "Oh my God, why is Eddie Van Halen on my iPad?" And the first thing Eddie said was, "I'm trying to hold this thing up so I don't look like an old man," because he was actually sitting in his bedroom leaning against his headboard. So it was a very intimate, relaxed call. We expected Eddie to maybe do something for like 5 minutes, like, "Hey, hang in there. I've had cancer. I know it's tough," that type of thing. He spent at least 45 minutes with Mike, walked around the house, showed him different parts of the house, went in the kitchen, opens up a drawer and pulls out his pick. And he says, "This is the pick I wrote Eruption with." And it was metal. I didn't even realize it was metal. So, and that's one of the things Eddie feels like may have caused his tongue cancer, because he used to put his pick in his mouth, and he said the harmonics and the electronics in the studio and stuff like that, he wondered about that. But he showed us stuff that he used, that he had to have, that went down his throat to burn the cancer on his throat. And it was just like, wow. But he was so gracious with his time. And, he just was fantastic with Mike. After 45 minutes after they hung up, Mike was in tears. Nancy and I was trying to film this thing with my cell phone, and my hand was shaking so bad because I was so excited. I had to hand it to his son, who was in high school at the time, actually filmed it. So I've got the whole conversation on film, which is fantastic. But they ended it with saying, "We hope you come to the show in Raleigh." And we were like, "Well, we got tickets." And, I'm starting to think, well, maybe if we do come, y'all will get to see Mike and we'll get to meet you or something like that, But that was in May. And then the irony of the story is that he passed away in September. And I was not going to have any influence on Nancy about arrangements or what have you. And it turned out the funeral was the day of the Van Halen show. And I did the eulogy for him. So the funeral was like, I want to say 11 o'clock that day. His family came in from Michigan. His best friend, he had a version of me up in Michigan that he was a Van Halen friend with in Michigan, and that guy came down with his wife. So, lots of people at the house. We decided that we were going to still go to the show in Mike's memory. And I had made T-shirts, and black T-shirts with our picture from 2012, from the 2012 Van Halen show. And we did hashtag Winkler Strong on the front of the T-shirt. And that hashtag had actually become quite popular at his kids' high school. So both of his kids were at the same high school, and hashtag Winkler Strong was very popular. So so we put that on the shirt. We agreed to go to the show. Nancy, of course, couldn't go because she had a house full of people. So we took his buddy John from Michigan and Jay, the other fellow. And we got in the car with my wife and headed over to Raleigh. And on our way to Raleigh, we got a phone call, and it's from his handlers. And they're like, where are you guys at? Where are you guys at? How far out are you? And we were like, we're on our way. It's about an hour and a half drive from Greensboro to Raleigh. And they said, well, when you get here, come into the back parking lot, to the backstage parking lot. and we've got something for you. So we all, we think we know what that means. So we're all excited and giddy. And the interesting thing was I didn't have a backstage parking lot pass, right? So I didn't have backstage passes at this point. So event folks, these guys in the yellow jackets that are directing traffic and all this kind of stuff, they have this thing blocked off, and I take a right to go backstage, and they're trying to stop me and waving at me. And I'm like, sorry, I'm gonna go see Eddie. So that was actually kind of funny. But they come out, take us backstage. We first see Janie. She's sitting on a couch, and they've turned this backstage room. They've got all these carpets, tapestries, I guess is what you call them. And they've hung it all over the room to make it look, kind of cool. And there's beads hanging down the doorway. And I kid you not, Eddie walked out with a guitar around his neck, strumming it. It's not plugged into an amp or anything. And it was like an entrance. And he came through the beads, and we were like, hey, so no crowd is too small for Eddie to make a little entrance. But he was so nice. He gave us all hugs, and he was concerned about how we were doing, because he knew that the funeral was that day. We took pictures, and he spent some time with us, and we got to meet. I gave Janie a big hug, because really, if it wasn't for her, she didn't let me track her down and stalk her. It would have never happened. But got to meet Cody, their little dog, their little Pomeranian. I don't know if you follow them on social media.
Yep, I do.
He's a cute little guy. Let me rub his belly and stuff like that. We got some great pictures, and they gave us great seats, and it was a great show. Something I'll never forget. He doesn't get a lot of press for doing things. I did find out just kind of accidentally that there was another guy who had a similar scenario that had cancer that Eddie FaceTimed with. So he's done it before, but he keeps it low key. And I kind of didn't make this story really public. It was just kind of a private thing, but within close friends. But when Eddie passed away, I was like, people need to know what kind of guy he was beyond being king of six strings and 10 fingers, so.
Let me ask you one thing. When you have that call and your buddy sees it and he gets off after 45 minutes, you had mentioned that he was a little bit out of it and having a bad day, but obviously this got to lift his spirits. So let me put it this way: how much life does it put back into him? Because he must have been on this high of like, right. Wow, I've spoken to Eddie Van Halen. He took time to talk to me. So his bad day must have turned into at least for that moment, just an exceptionally great day.
I think it was one of the highlights for him, to meet Eddie, via, just being FaceTime, but it was so personal. Mike was really weak in May, and he made it to September. Whether or not that gave him some additional, charge in his battery, I like to think so. But I saw Mike cry, and I've never seen Mike cry before, so that was really, important, getting, I don't know, I'm about to break up myself just talking.
I know, I can hear it, I can see it.
So
listen, we've lost two important people in your life. You lost, and it's just nice that they were able to have this moment together, and
yeah. Well, and it's for some people, when I tell the story now, and I can kind of see them glaze over, and they're like, "Oh, Van Halen, it's an '80s band or something," But they don't understand the connection, the conduit, the umbilical cord that music brings people together and creates friendships. And, for some people, maybe they've got a friend that they always go to the Yankees games with, or they grew up going to a Yankees game, or their dad always took them to the Yankees games, so, and then their dad passes away and they haven't been to a Yankees game since, and somebody takes them to a Yankees game, and that brings back all those memories. So for different people, it's different things, but I think music's one of the, beautiful things that Eddie brought us. I hear a lot of people saying, don't be sad he's gone, be glad he was here. But, damn it, I'm sad he's gone, because, 65 he's young. He's very young. He had a lot of music left in him. For all the Van Halen fans, one of the things about Van Halen was that, every 4 or 5 years you wondered, well, are they going to make a new record with Eddie with Dave? Are they going to tour with Dave? Is Sammy going to reconcile? They're going to come back with, Sammy. They're going to do a combination with Dave and Sammy. There's always that speculation, but you always had something to think about or hope for, right? Now it's final. We're not going to get that.
That's what I was saying to friends and to Alan Niven. I said, now we've lost that hope. There was always this hope that next year, the farewell tour with all the guys,
right.
It's gone. And what I was telling Alan Niven before and other folks is, when a show comes into town, you go there and you get to be 15 again. For one night you're 15 again. And so now that Eddie's gone and we'll never have Van Halen again, there is that part of you, that 15-year-old, where you go, you know what, Mitch, you're not 15 anymore. Let it go. It's gone, and you can never get it back. And it's a realization that the music that kept you young, you ain't young anymore. And 65 for my age, your age, ain't that far. And it's
right.
Like, wow. So there's an impact of losing Eddie. There's an impact of losing the star. But then there's that slap of mortality that hits you and you go, oh, fuck, I'm not 15. And
right.
I don't get to live that night again. I don't get to go to the Bell Center or the Greensboro this or the Staples Center and be 15 again. And that one, that's hard. It's just like your whole world changed. My whole world changed overnight because, I've seen other rock stars pass away and I didn't have that connection with them. But, losing Eddie or eventually losing Ozzy or eventually losing Paul Stanley, that's me. I'm not just losing them. I'm losing me.
Right. Part of you.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a part of you. It's a part of your foundation, your DNA that made you who you are. I think, I always kind of thought like, I've thought about like, what if Roth dies? And I will tell you that when I started listening to Van Halen and I saw some cover albums and then I was like, I saw Roth with his shirt off and the girls going crazy over him. I was like, dude, I got to start working out. That dude's in shape. He parties and rock and rolls and stuff, but he is a freaking Tarzan. And so he got me into the gym. I started lifting weights and exercising because of Roth, so, and I saw him in 2015 take his shirt off and he still looks better than I do.
Listen, I saw David Lee Roth earlier this year in February opening for Kiss. And the guy is crazy in shape. And I don't know how he is right now, but you just look at him and you go, man, what a specimen. And you had these 4 specimens that got together and just gave us over 40 years of just memories. Right.
And don't, this is no knock on Ed. Ed was in great shape. And Ed could do those scissor kicks and, those leaps and stuff. Of course, he had to replace that hip because of all that pounding. It always amazed me how these guys could stay in such good shape and do what they do and party the way they partied and, legendary type stuff and be on the road. You're not taking a gymnasium with you on the road. You got drums and amps and guitars and, whatnot. So it was just a phenomenal band. I don't know that we'll ever see a band like them. And also, it made me feel good. I found out that the rumor last summer was true about Michael Anthony getting in. They've confirmed that. Their band manager has confirmed that they reached out to, Michael and they were going to do it. And then Eddie's health went south. And that's when, of course, we started getting, comments from Roth about he doesn't think Eddie's going to answer the bell this time, that type of thing. So, and he went on to the Vegas residency and then on to the Kiss tour. So, but who knows what can happen in the future? Maybe one day we'll have Alex playing drums and Michael Anthony be on bass and
Wolfie on guitar. Yeah. And
yeah, Dave can sing a song, Sammy can sing a song, and you have guest guitarists come out and do different stuff, and maybe a charity goes to cancer research or something. Who knows?
I would pay to go see that. I would love to see that. And you don't go say, hey, Van Halen's back. You say it's a tribute to Eddie, an evening of tribute to Eddie, or Van Halen featuring Brian May or whatever. Right. I would love to see it do it, because I think as fans, we need closure. And I think the band needs closure, because right now, they finished, I guess it was in 215, the last date, October 4th of 215.
Yeah, at the band show.
Yeah, and it just sort of, the tour ended and that was it. And Van Halen can't just end randomly on some, end tour date. There's got to be some pomp and circumstance, and there's got to be a show where we celebrate the eras, we celebrate Ed, we get all these guys that were inspired by him, all these players, whether it's Slash or whoever, and just go and do something and maybe take it on the road and call it, the tribute to Eddie Van Halen. That's what I'm hoping for, because I don't want to. I just don't want to accept that it's over. Now Van Halen, of course, is over, but I want to hear that music one last time, and I want to hear the speeches, where they say, "Hey, Eddie did this in the studio, and this is Eddie's favorite song," and I want to go to the Bell Center in Montreal and just cry for one night and just hear it for one night. That's what I want. And I think fans would allow that and just say, yeah, you know what? One last kick of the can, and let's just remember the guy and say thank you.
I agree with you 100%. You don't want to stop talking about it, because it's like when you stop, you're almost afraid, like, when your band was big in the 80s, you're almost afraid that it's going to fade away and lose relevancy, and people are going to forget, and and that's almost like dying, but so once he's passed away, you don't want anybody to stop talking about him and keeping that spirit alive. I was watching the football game last night on Fox, NFL game, and Tampa Bay versus Chicago, and every other commercial they were going to break with a Van Halen tune, and they had one that was spectacular. It was Unchained, and it showed the guys running out of the tunnel, and a couple of big hits that were timed perfectly with the song. And I was like, see, if you go to any college football stadium, a pro football stadium, there's no more songs played by any other band than Van Halen at arena football. One of the things I also do on the side is I'm a high school PA football announcer. So I play a ton of Van Halen through the speakers at the high school stadium. So I told some of the writers that follow me on Twitter and stuff, I was like, be ready. If we ever get back into the football, high school football gets turned back on, y'all going to get a dose of some Van Halen.
As they should. Teach those players, teach those kids some good music. Oh,
That's right.
Oh, Jesus.
I wore this shirt today. You can't, the folks on the air won't be able to hear it, but I got my Van Halen 2007 shirt on, and I wore it today knowing we were going to do this. And I went out and I had 3 or 4 kids in their 20s go, great shirt. And I was like, you know who he is? And they said, yeah, my dad listens to his music. And I was like, all right.
Listen, there are still a few cool dads out there. But Dale, thank you for sharing this. I know we had spoken a while back about doing this, and you respectfully said, listen, it's not the time, it's a private moment. And I'm glad that you decided to share it, because it is important. And I think that it shows what kind of character Eddie was. And I've always personally thought that when you do charity, you shouldn't go announce it from the mountaintop, because if the whole point is for you to say, look at me, I'm super,
Right.
then it's no
Right.
longer charitable to me. That's how I view it. So I think charity is done quietly, and I don't want to say charity, but that kind of work is done quietly, understated. You don't go shout it from the rooftops. And what he did for your friend is beyond commendable. It's beyond anything. It's just wonderful and great on him, and it just goes to show. So
And and to add to that, Eddie never said, don't share this, or Janie never said, hey, this is not for public consumption. But I assumed it, because of the big favor they were pulling for Mike and for me, to allow us into their home like that, So I just felt like now that he's passed, it's important, and it's a good time. And there's some sensitive pictures of Mike, the one that he's crying on my Facebook page. I hadn't posted that one before, and I called his wife and I said, hey, listen, I think that people ought to see this picture so they can see how Eddie moved Mike, and is it okay now? And she said, yeah, let's put that up. So you hold some things until the right time, and unfortunately, I was hoping this wouldn't be the right time, but it is. So, I think the whole Van Halen nation's hurting. Everybody's trying to find ways to
hope
themselves. So this has been therapeutic for me. So I appreciate you letting me do this. I told Mark Goodman the same thing. I was like, it really feels good to be able to tell the story, because I feel like it's therapy for myself, but also it helps me, tell Mike's story, not just Eddie's story, but Mike's story.
Yeah, and they're both great stories. So thank you for that. And boy, I got to tell you, it's strange to be on this, and we're both here at our age, almost crying in each other's face. But thank you for doing that, and thank you for sharing, and thank you for reaching out and saying, yeah, now is the time. And God bless Mike. God bless Eddie.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Let me just